Start the morning right with a cup of Vinyl Tap. Nothing beats the refreshing taste of a hot, warm mug of Vinyl Tap. Enjoy your podcast in liquid form today. Vinyl Tap. Enjoy responsibly.
2, 1.
Vinyl Tap.
I'm Habibi.
I'm Habibi.
I'm Habibi.
And this week on Vinyl Tap, we listened to F1 Grand Prix World by T-Square. But you may be forgiven for thinking that it was Truth.
By the Square.
Okay,
by the Square.
Can you explain this?
I don't know the exact year, but Japan used Truth by T-Square or the Square for the intro to like the F1 Grand Prix.
There you go.
Yeah, it was like the theme
So it was like
song.
a re-release kind of...
Yeah,
So the first track on this album, Truth?
Yes, the first
Okay.
track, yeah. And then they made an album that was all like their sort of like car-related songs. I guess it's like a compilation.
And that's this?
And that's this.
Okay.
Yeah, so it has a fair few songs from the album Truth, but also other albums of theirs.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
do you know when that happened?
That happened. I think this was released in 97, maybe?
Okay.
Right.
I think.
Okay.
So, okay.
Because
But some songs are from...
87.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at the
correct.
earliest.
And
The
some
earliest,
songs,
yeah.
so between 87 to 97.
Yes. I'm pretty sure I've got that
Okay.
right.
Right.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense then with the tonal shifts that kind of happen.
The tonal shifts and the car sounds that
I
it begins
mean,
with.
yeah.
The car sounds...
The
all amazing.
motorbike or the angry dog, as I wanted to
Honestly, I
ask.
thought that actually might have been them, like, playing. Like, you know,
I mean,
you
it
can get,
probably
like, car
was.
effects with,
Yeah.
like, brass instruments.
It probably was, but I was just like, oh, I can't tell what that is.
It's an angry dog.
It's an angry dog.
Angry Dog.
The name would suggest F1 Grand Angry Dog World. Classic Jason, always getting it just spot on accurate.
Look, I assumed car.
Welcome to Vinyl Tap.
So what were your
I'm
thoughts?
Habibi.
What did you think, Jason?
What did I think? I really enjoyed it.
You took a lot of notes.
I took so many notes.
Wow.
I really...
I can't even read all those.
I don't have a lot of useful information to add to this, unsurprisingly. It's not... it's hard to be critical of something when you don't have the vocabulary and you haven't listened to enough of it to critique things.
I actually love when I'm in that element. Because
Yeah.
then I can just absolutely hate on something with no justification.
See, I enjoyed it, but I can't.
Notice.
I can't point to something that this is why I liked it, because it's really. I don't necessarily know harmonically complex, but it's very dense with what's going on, and on a first listen, when I'm not used to listening to things like that, it makes it very hard. Like what Andrew was saying way back when, it can be a little overwhelming, and
Right.
it's hard to point at this is what I like
Yeah.
or this is what I don't like because it is so dense.
Yeah.
And as an overall experience, very positive. I like the tones of most of the instruments that were being used, especially the saxophone, which I know that we will talk about at some point. But it's really hard to find specifics because there wasn't any real structural or textural things that they were doing from a first listen that I got out of that. Because it is so dense, nothing jumped out at me. And it's not to say that they're not doing things.
Okay.
That's not what I'm trying to say.
So
I'm
your
saying
lack
that
of familiarity with the genre has left you at a loss for words.
a little bit, especially from just like one listen through. It's
Yeah.
very hard to.
Maybe if I pose a question like this, we'll get a bit of like idea. How excited? Well, are you going to have, after having listened to this, listen to more jazz fusion?
Oh yeah, I've never
Has
not
this
liked jazz
album
fusion.
like pushed you to want to listen to more things like it?
Not necessarily, because
Okay.
I like jazz
an
fusion,
interesting answer.
but it's not like my go-to. It's not what I'm gonna put on while I'm doing something or sit down and listen to it.
You
but I
listen
do
to a lot of Weather Report, though, right?
a bit of it, like not a huge amount.
Right. Because I think that answer is really interesting because, like, this is essentially Weather Report, as far as I could tell. like almost cut and paste some of the tones and everything. And
Again, if you asked me to elucidate about Weather Report,
Oh, you
I
wouldn't-
couldn't
okay.
give you a
Okay.
lot of information about it. It's one of those, it's just very dense. It's really interesting and I enjoy it, but I'm not familiar enough with it.
So we're gonna count Jason out of the rest of this
Yeah, okay,
episode.
bye.
Yeah.
Bye, Jason.
Okay. Time for Tim's thoughts. I'm kidding. You're valid. I hated this. It was fucking terrible. No, I loved it. This might be my favorite Vinyl Tap album we've listened to. I absolutely
Really?
loved
Wow,
this.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
man.
That's a
huge.
curveball.
This is so
Holy
good.
Shit.
I loved this to the end of the circuit track and back.
And back.
Can I ask-
I did 2 laps.
Even the ballad at the end.
Of course I loved the ballad at the end. It was so stupid.
No, that's really surprising. Why? Why did you love it so
Well,
much?
So like Jason, I've always liked the idea of jazz fusion. Sure, like, yeah, that sounds great. I'll listen to that. But I've never like gone too far in. I probably more than you.
Yeah, probably more
just
than me.
by osmosis with my brass centric family, and the school we went to.
Yeah.
But this has really made me be like, oh, I need to listen to more of this because I love it. It's
Right.
so cool.
Right.
Yeah, this had me going the whole time.
That's cool.
And also, I think this in particular, most jazz fusion doesn't have specifically this. A lot of this is late 80s, early 90s, right?
Video game sounds.
Video game sounds.
Yeah.
This is like
Yeah.
exactly the 16-bit sounds. I should rephrase. The video game soundtracks from those 16-bit games that I love, they're my favorite soundtracks out of everything. Like, this seems to be what they worked off of. Because, you know, of the limitations they had with their chipsets. Not speaking well. They had to resort to keeping music more interesting with rhythm and harmony, right? And
Right.
just funky shit like that instead of like cool, more conventional tones that you'd be used to.
Yep.
And I think that like I'm seeing a lot of similarities between the sounds used in these synthesizers and what was replicated on like the Sega Genesis.
Well, look, it
and
makes
the
a lot of
Super
sense.
Nintendo.
That makes a lot of sense because, like, when Weather Report went to Japan, they were fucking huge.
Yeah.
Like, so massive. And, I mean, it's like a lot of these songs are almost indistinguishable from Weather Report. It's insane. And I can imagine that. Like, I know that this music was just big in Japan,
Yeah.
just like all through. So all of those artists writing music for video games, this would have been their influence.
Yeah.
So it's like they kind of just go hand in hand, right?
And that's why I need to listen to more of it. So I can like have a greater understanding and appreciation for what's going on in the history behind this music that I love.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
No, that's fair enough.
There was one section in Wanderer in Circuit, the second song, where it had these like gliding chords grammatically ascending, and it's
Yeah.
like that is the start of a Mario Kart lap. You know how they have the keyboard intro? It's that! There it is! It was just sitting there.
They
And it's like the
ripped it
same
up.
sound as well.
Also, so there was a synth line that was basically identical to Chick Corea's got an album called Spanish Fantasy. And there's a song on there that everyone who ever listens to it is like, oh, that sounds like a Mario song. And literally the synth sounds between those like Wonder in Circuit and that are identical. It's
Right.
almost like they listened to it and they were like, okay, let's match it. Like they
Yeah.
dialed in.
That's what I'm talking
You
about.
say that, but
sound.
also in the 80s, they didn't have the largest range of synth sounds to choose from.
No, I
Like-
disagree. No, you can have a pretty huge array of sounds.
Compared to today, no. And
You reckon?
Yeah, today is like super limitless.
Oh, well,
let's
like
talk-
compared to... Yeah,
but
no,
like
but
in
like
the
it's-
80s,
it's-
and there were like good synth sounds and bad synth sounds, and people tended towards a set amount that.
My dad would have a stern word with you about that.
I'm going to disagree because you have your generator, you have your sine square or sawtooth, and you like even back in the 80s, you can adjust the envelope, you can put filters on it. Like the stuff's, it's all there.
The technology,
If-
I don't think really has evolved.
If
It's
you're
just become
using
digital,
It's
right?
become more
if you're
accessible.
using like modular stuff where you're patching it yourself, you can do that stuff. But for most people, who were using synths, and I can't speak for this band because I don't know, but you'd buy your Roland or your whatever brand it was, and you would have the set sounds that came on that thing. And
No, you wouldn't. What? No way. No, you'd have it, and then you could like adjust all the. You just ended up with a thing that was probably about.
Think about
a
the
little
Moog.
bit bigger than this table.
Think about the Moog that came out in the early 70s that had like shit tons of sliders and knobs. Right? That was all for adjusting the particulars of the sound. That was early 70s. This is like 15 years later at the earliest.
Yeah. Are you thinking like Casio keyboard, like you cycle
You press
through?
the one button and...
Or what are you describing?
What am I thinking of? I'd have to look into it
on
and
the
figure out what
consumer
I'm
level,
thinking about.
You're completely right at the consumer level.
Yeah, and sure that these guys were a big band, but again, most people, when it became accessible, jumped on board with, this is the easy, I can click the button and get the tone I want. Most people weren't sitting
Yeah, but
around
this
and
band
fiddling.
sounds like the kind of band where... they
Yeah, and I'm
would've
not saying that they
fucked-
didn't, but I'm saying there's also just as much chance that they were using a sound that...
Can you provide an example of a band that, like, you're for sure definite they just used a preset sound that came loaded on their Casio keyboard?
Of course not, because I wasn't involved in the way that they recorded
Because
things.
I would argue that they probably all had specific tweaks. Like, sure, you had, like, classic keyboards, like that one Roland that everyone...
yeah, the Roland... What
like
is it? Like JP80
Yeah.
something like that?
You know
Yeah.
the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That, like, there are some sounds on that are iconic and, like, were used, and those are presets that you would know the sounds if you heard them. Yes, those definitely. I think probably the most famous example is Van Halen's Jump. Oh my god, we need to talk about Van Halen.
Well, I was thinking... that's what I was going to...
Because here it is.
When you were asking me for an example, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure Van Halen didn't go out of their way to tone in, like dial in exactly what synth they wanted.
I'd be interested.
Oh,
know
that's
the
an
answer to
interesting... Because, I mean, most people, even at just like you're a real basic bitch consumer, you get the sound and then you tweak it a little bit, right? To get a slightly different attack. Like it'll have that traditional sound, the preset sound, but then you might want a bit of a different attack or a little bit of a different delay or whatever. Fade, maybe. I would assume most
Maybe.
people would adjust it slightly.
Dunno. We've reached a topic where none of us...
We're entirely
don't
into
really-
speculation.
And my point was more... It's just as likely that they've gone, this is a sound that we like from something else, let's click and use that, and not like specifically dialed things in. I'm not saying that they haven't done that, but my point was more, it's very easy to go, this is a sound someone else has, I want that sound and I want to use it.
Yeah, okay.
But then the video game sound chip designers, they had to, like... They couldn't just load the preset from the Roland.
No.
Whatever. They had to...
Make it.
My
give
god,
that,
they
have
had...
that particular sound.
Like, it blows my mind what they did. And it's cool hearing those sounds. And, like, it's not even just the sounds, it's the treatment of the sounds. What they do with them that's, like, so similar to, like, Sonic the Hedgehog soundtracks. It's weird that connection's there.
So
Between Chick Corea and Sonic the Hedgehog, here, there it is. It's T-Square.
It's
That's the
T-Square.
missing link.
So look, we've solved synth sounds, but something that they did have a lot of control over was the drum sound, and tonally that is like so 80s glam rock.
Yeah.
Like, holy
Oh my
shit, the
God.
reverb on the snare and bass drums, where it's, I'm discluding the last song, but it just gives it that really big, like full kind of
It's the
rock tone, 80s
Phil
rock
Collins
tone.
treatment, right?
The Phil Collins treatment, yeah. That was just all through it, and
I wasn't
don't
listening
know.
out for it. Maybe the toms didn't have bottoms so that they could reverberate more. Like they have a stronger attack.
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention for that.
Yeah. Because that's
yeah.
what Phil Collins did. No,
it was
Really?
really bizarre because there was like,
Yeah, he just has tops on his toms.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow, what an interesting thing to
Like,
do.
so the sound can't bounce off the bottom of the tom and
yeah.
echo, but you just get such a sharper attack from them.
yeah.
So it's like you give and take, you know.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's crazy.
you learn something new every day.
It's school day. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really weird. I could really distinctly hear jazz elements and rock, and it was like really distinctly clear.
Yep. That's what
And-
fusion is, hey?
Well, sort of. The fusion that I'm kind of used to listening to, they're more jazz
Yeah.
in general. So like,
It's like jazz plus Spanish and jazz
yeah,
plus...
exactly right. There's a lot of like Spanish influence or the rock kind of influence kind of is mostly just in the guitar.
Yeah.
And it's mostly just, I put on a bit of distortion, I've got some rock licks. But otherwise it's pretty jazzy.
But this...
This is like 80s rock. Bam! And then
But also
jazz.
chord.
Which I thought was really, really cool. It's actually, bizarre but refreshing.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Also, yeah, they basically like Senna-Solitude. Is that?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
track
my
5?
God. We need to talk about Senna-Solitude.
You should listen to because you're wondering about the sax player. That
Yeah.
just sounds like Michael Brecker.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Does?
yeah, almost identical.
Right.
Like same tone, same licks, everything.
Well, I don't know.
or you could just listen to. I don't know who played here. I'm sorry,
But it was a great
but
job.
it was
well
you,
done.
and you were great.
I mean,
I'm quite
also,
confident.
I'm not certain if that's the name we looked up was that person because we need to look out what year that song was from, knowing that it's a compilation now as
Right,
well.
right.
Because they've had different sax players across the years.
Right.
True. Okay, fair play.
Don't know about you guys. I'm pretty sure that was a soprano sax in this song.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Or just like if it's an alto sax, holy crap! No, it must be a soprano sax. This song is so beautiful. I loved
Yeah.
it. I loved it so much. I had the same problem as Jason. I just couldn't. I couldn't get the
Understand
words
it?
in.
It's
I was too busy listening.
That
which
and
is
the next one,
so
just
uncommon
the
for me on vinyl tap. Like I usually just like write down the chords that I'm listening to. I couldn't. I was just listening to it.
For me, these were just like the most almost tropey songs in the whole album. Like the bass tone for In Senna-Solitude is again ripped straight from Jaco. And like the lines that he played were basically identical. So for me, it was kind of like, I don't know, it's strange. Like listening to Weather Report.
I
And it
love
was
that-
just like another Weather Report track. No difference.
I love that this whole world is out there that he knows and we don't. That like something that we can find so exciting and fresh is tropey.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like a Exceeding Eau Rouge,
Yeah.
Eau Rouge, whatever.
Also beautiful.
Track 6.
Yeah.
The bass line in there, where it does, it's like doom.
I was like not paying attention to the bass at all. In
Like,
those.
there was a
I
beautiful sax solo
so captured by what the saxophone was doing in both of those tracks.
No, so if you listen to the bass,
Yeah, no.
it has sax is amazing, sure, but like that bass is doing like this. It was kind of almost disgustingly smooth. It was like it has this like little slide on it as it like rises up, and then it, and it's all through fusion. It's such a fat trope.
Right.
But it was great. I love it.
It is great.
That's not a bad thing. It's just also they had the lick in the piano.
Yeah, I was gonna
solo.
ask.
Yeah.
What song was that? Was that this song?
Yeah, that was Exceeding Eau Rouge.
Do you want to explain the lick for people who aren't going to know? Because I only found out about this
Oh, really?
last time we
Only-
filmed, remember?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't remember. I just had a mental
Oh,
block.
do-dee-doo-dee-doom-boom.
Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
the one.
You go up. You go up 3 times and then like skip down and come back.
It's
That's
like
it. That's
all
it.
through jazz.
I was
Actually,
going
no,
to say,
all
to
through
put it,
music.
put it in actual terms, it's just a lick that appears over and over again in different songs.
everything.
And if you YouTube the lick, you'll see examples.
Who did a video on that?
Probably Adam Neely.
Adam Neely does a really good video on that. Where he like shows up the lick everywhere.
It's great.
Yeah, once you hear it, it ruins music.
Good lick. Yeah. It's like the 4 chords again, you know.
It is. It's just like the 4 chords. You're like, oh fuck, everywhere it's got it.
It's unavoidable.
Even Pavarotti. So any other?
we
other
need to talk
standouts?
about the last song.
the last song.
I mean,
The last
before we
two
before we
songs
go
even.
to that, Home Straight in the Rain was a little bit of a detour from the more jazz and
Yeah.
more into
Hair metal.
kind of, if you're willing to call Van Halen hair metal, which it kind of is.
It's like a precursor to it, isn't it?
Did
they have the hair?
No, because Van Halen was more the tail end moving into the 90s, right?
No.
I mean, it was all through the 80s
Not
as
at
well,
all.
I guess.
Van Halen predates most hair metal
metal?
bands. And the sound that,
Yeah.
that the hair metal bands took from Van Halen predates them.
True.
Like
true.
it's the late 70s Van Halen.
I'm gonna
that they're using.
that Bon
Yeah.
Jovi was like centered on.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna continue
Motley
this
Crue.
detour a little bit. I've had a few people ask me what hair metal actually is, and I thought that was just like a general term that everyone knew, but I didn't know how to
Oh
explain
god.
it.
Oh, do we have the time?
Well, like briefly.
Brief summary.
Why is it hair metal? Is it
Because
like, the
it was
hair and
partnered
everything?
with a certain look of big long hair. It was like lighter metal, not as heavy
It was like Sabbath.
as Sabbath and
Or
Zeppelin
Iron
Distorted.
Maiden.
It was like more radio friendly in a lot of ways.
Except for Motley Crue.
Except for maybe thematically not as radio friendly,
Right.
but like musically it was
more approachable.
more approachable.
What kind of bands would fit in there?
Twisted Sister,
Guns N' Roses.
Thin
Okay.
Lizzy.
Right.
I mean, Bon Jovi is often classified as hair metal, but there's more of a country element. To Bon
Yeah,
Jovi.
that-
That's a term that's come after though. So they
Yeah.
would just be metal bands and then
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it wasn't
only
a.
last however long.
That's
it's hair
normally
metal.
how that works, though, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's fair.
Glam metal is a bit of a different term.
But it's kind of
They're
Venn
kind- they're
diagram.
related,
Yeah,
Venn diagram.
yeah,
Right, because I called this clam metal, Homestone in
Yeah.
the Rain.
Well,
Right.
it is.
yeah. So
Is it, or is it hair metal? What's the?
They're kind of the
interchange.
same.
Yeah. Anyway, I'd be interested to know because the Van Halen tone uses a, oh god, it's not a transformer, but like it's a voltmeter type thing where you're not powering the amp fully.
Really?
Yeah,
What?
That's really bizarrely
I
specific.
can't
what does
remember.
How does that affect the tone?
it makes it sound like Van Halen.
Right.
I can't remember the exact thing of what it's called, but I know
So
that
you're
it's
telling me if I plug in my amp and then I get a fork and I divert some of the current from my amp,
Vinyl Tap does not endorse sticking forks into your amplifier.
but what if you get the Van Halen tone?
I can't remember what it's called. I'm blanking on the word, but it's to do with. Is it the volts? I think it's to do with like not giving the amp a certain amount of volts, and it just.
Right, so yeah,
Yeah.
it would be a transformer, right? It's something that
think
lets
so.
you like, lower the current. Like, I don't know. I'm not a fucking electrician.
Yeah, I'd need to double check again exactly how it. But pretty much, that's how he. Part of the reason how he got his tone is by having the amp powered in a certain way, because then it outputs it with
So
the tone that he has.
That's what this Home Straight in the Rain made you.
Well, just because the tone was so similar, and I'm not 100% sure if there's especially in the 80s, I don't know if there's another way to get that besides doing that. And that's one of the reasons why he's so, he is in Eddie is so revered as like being so innovative by doing things like that.
That's what I thought was really interesting. So like, you guys wouldn't have got this, but all through this, I was like, oh, it's that artist. You sound like this. And then we got to like
The last two songs.
the last two songs, and it was like, you sound like all these metal bands, and it's like, it's all original, but it's like they're the master copycats where they've
Yeah.
managed to completely copy somebody else's sound and then use that in their own
I was
original
going to say,
way.
but that's what fusion is, right? Taking things and putting it together and...
Right.
And compositionally, it's more exciting, more involving than most hair metal, I would consider.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, even these last two songs, there's more to dig into, I would say. Like, the last one is like a country ballad, almost.
Yeah, I still
Yeah.
think it was the weakest song on the album, personally. Very biased reasons of... I don't feel like it went anywhere. All the others had, like... They, increased in intensity and dropped in intensity, and I felt like this one kind of just sat the same pretty much all the way
Jason.
through.
Sleigh bells.
There was sleigh bells in this song.
Come on, you have to love it.
In this Christmas country.
Exactly. I don't know if it was country. It felt like
He was riffing on
not
the
country.
title of
The
the
title
song.
of the song is in this
In
country.
show
See, I was
myself.
being very clever. It was like a cold chisel. I want to know who this singer was because like it sounded like he was imitating John Bon Jovi, kind of. I want to know if he was Japanese, firstly, because I love people from like non-Anglo countries imitating like American singers. That's
Yeah.
so much fun to me. Like when we listen to Edguy, those German singers doing that hair metal. I love that so much. But like this, I got a Cold Chisel vibe from this. Didn't like the slow anthemic kind of vibe they were going for. Do you know what I mean? No, cool.
Sort of. I'm trying to think. 80s ballads. There was something it reminded me of, but I couldn't place it. It was just very 80s, very ballad, but there was no...
I'm sure there's a Bon Jovi song that's like identical.
Probably, but there was just no big emotional crux where you had that like...
Horses?
like... Not quite. Not quite.
This is Daryl Braithwaite's next big hit. He's going to cover this and be back in the limelight. I'm waiting for you, Daryl.
Yeah, look, tonally though, it was weird. This song tonally stuck out, and it was strange to me how little Home Street in the Rain didn't really stick out, even though it did.
The second section, I'm not really sure. The one that wasn't Van Halen in tone, that sounded a bit more like Olivia Newton-John physical melodically,
Yeah.
was a bit more towards the jazz side of things.
Right,
So
yeah.
it kind of was like, oh, it's still
it in.
within the realm.
tonal
Whereas
blending.
this was just, it almost feels like it's been added on at the end because
Yeah.
it's like we need an extra song or we need something different, or maybe because it was for an event, they were like, we need a song that has words. So put one that has words on
Yeah,
it.
something patriotic or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sung in English for this Japanese event. I guess a lot of English-speaking people would have tuned in. I had something.
And it's gone.
Yeah.
I think it was okay that Fusion died. Yeah.
In general,
In general, yeah, I think that's okay. Because with Fusion
growth,
Jazz.
personal growth.
Personal growth. No, I kind of, it goes on for a long time. It really does. Of just kind of like
Solo and solo.
Solo
It's like
and
it's
solo
very
and
it's a
solo
very
and solo.
self-indulgent genre.
yeah, and I think it's cool that we've got this, and I'm glad that we're not still getting it today.
That it's over.
That it's over and that like life moved on.
I mean, there are definitely bands out there that still do this.
Yeah, but I don't listen to them, do I?
Next week on Vinyl Tap, we'll be listening to Under the Cherry Blossom Forest in Full Bloom by Ninganisu. Click above to find out what else we've spoken about in this theme.
Click below to support the artist that we just listened to.
And make sure to tune in next week for more Vinyl Tap.